Hi everybody, today is Tuesday the 5th of November 2024 and you're listening to a recording of the speaker meeting from this week's Relapse and Recovery meeting. Today I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Bruce R. to our meeting. Bruce comes from New Brunswick, Canada and now lives in Ottawa, Canada, and he came into the rooms in 2000. We're delighted to welcome him here today to share his experience, strength and hope. Take it away, Bruce.
Thank you, Arnie. Yes, I am a compulsive eater and my name is Bruce. Very happy to be here. Thank you to Rita for asking me to share my story. So yeah, I'm just going to click on that. It's just more of a reminder for me just to stay within the timing confines. I recognize a few faces, a few names on this, but I haven't spoken at this meeting. And well, if you haven't heard my story, you're in for a treat because I am a delight. So as I mentioned, I came into the rooms at 2000, but our stories, as said in the big book, share in a general way what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And I am also a relapse survivor, so I will be talking about that in my story. There's a few things before I came into the program. There was a time when I was, I'm gonna say 5 or 6. I don't think I'd started school, but my older siblings decided that I needed to go on a diet. And so they came up with a plan that I was supposed to follow, and they were monitoring me incessantly. I should also mention I come from a very large family. I'm the youngest of 13. Um, Not sure if I need to mention that my family's Roman Catholic. That might be implied in just in that statement. And we didn't have cable either. So we did come from it was a small farm, a sustenance farm. So it wasn't that unusual, particularly growing up in New Brunswick, to have such a large family, and in particularly a French Canadian family. So anyway, once my older siblings was learning about health in school and decided that I was too big and I needed to be skinnier. And of course, as what I've learned is anytime my food is being controlled, whether I'm trying to control it or someone else is trying to control it, I'm going to try to get around that. So I am into the food, and I'm going to mention some foods here, just as a fair warning. It was a sugared cereal. I can't for the life of me remember what it was, but anyway, my little hands were deep inside the cereal box, and my brother caught me, and I'm being a compulsive eater that I was. Instead of just putting down the food or whatever, say, "Oh, well, you got me." Like I ran, and I ran to go outside through to the back porch, which had this glass door. Now, if you ever want to know what happens when an irresistible force meets an immovable object, something's going to give. And what gave was me going through this glass door and getting a cut on my wrist from that. I had to get 7 stitches at the hospital. And sometimes if I wondering, like, am I really a compulsive eater, I just look at the scar and just like, oh yeah, that started at a young age. I never really dieted myself until I finished high school. In a sense, like it's hard to explain because I would lose weight kind of not thinking about it. In particular, there was a time when I was working at it was a historic farm. So on the farm, we were all like doing chores around there. So the boys were in charge of taking care of the animals outside. We also did some work inside. But on the weekends, there was lunches were made, and if you happened to be a visitor, you would be invited to come into the lunch. And one of these was this corned cabbage. Now that's kind of a delicacy in Eastern Canada. But the thing, corned beef, but the thing about that is that it is very salty, and you have to soak that like 3 or 4 times before it's actually edible. For whatever reason, they didn't do that. And if you could imagine what it'd be like biting into a brick of salt, that's the best way I could describe that meal. And everybody agreed that, like, oh, this was terrible, and then stopped eating. I, of course, did not stop eating because this was food, and damn it, I was going to have my fill. But what happened afterwards is that when I wanted to stop, like, all I needed to do was recall that meal, and I would lose my appetite. So for the when I started university for 4 months, I would like go to the cafeteria, get my meal. Halfway through, I would just have to remember that meal. Uh, and then I would lose my appetite. I had friends who were concerned that I was anorexic because I was just not eating very much through the 4 months. Like, we hear about the freshman 15. Well, I lost 40 pounds for the first 4 months. I found out later, like, talk to like, normal people, when like they have a meal and then they forget about it. That doesn't register with them anymore. For months, I could will myself into remembering what that meal was like and then lose my appetite. Uh, of course, then what happened is I had a knee injury from playing football, and then all of a sudden I'm lounging around, and food was a comfort. So the weight piled back on. Uh, I That was in Montreal. Then I moved to Quebec City to go to another school, thinking that my life would be much better there. Um, there might be some people here who've tried geographical cures, but the problem with that is no matter where I went, there I was. Uh, I had to bring all of me with me. Um, I started a bit of a bout of which I come to understand now as being a bit of exercise bulimia, where my day would start off with 2 hours at the gym doing cardio and weightlifting. I biked everywhere. I did every sport I could possibly think of. But the fact that I was still gaining weight, I can only imagine just how many calories I was intaking, because there was a lot being taken out, and energy in equals energy out. And that's how weight is maintained. Then I moved to Ottawa, and that's where I live now. I should also mention I'm coming to you from Halifax, Nova Scotia. I am here visiting my in-laws for vacation, um, which if I wasn't abstinent, this would be an issue. But because I am abstinent, I'm having a wonderful time while I'm here. But that's my life now. I'll get to that. Uh, when I moved to Ottawa and I started law school, all of a sudden I didn't have all the time, to do all the gym and the sports and stuff. And then the weight just kept going, 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 going. Um, I was in the rooms of a different 12-step program, and that's an outside issue. So that's as far as I'll mention it. But what I will say is that my sponsor there was a member of Overeaters Anonymous. And probably after me mentioning how many times I was eating this and that or weight, he suggested to me, well, why don't you try Overeaters Anonymous? And I said, well, why? I don't have a problem with food. Wise as this man was, said, I know you don't have a problem with food, but I want you to go to these meetings and you'll learn about the disease of more. So, a quick tip, if you ever want me to do something, say I'll learn, because that'll get me to go. So off I go to Overeaters Anonymous, and I was expecting to teach everybody there, how to actually work the program. Go into my first meeting, and there were 3 meetings that were happening at once. There was one that was a 12 and 12 OA, one that was a 12 and 12 AA, and another one for newcomers, which was in the kitchen in the basement of a church. And I was just like, really? Kitchen? Anyway, yeah, this is an organization that's going to go far. Off I go into my newcomers meeting, and there was co-leaders. The leader introduced himself. He said, I haven't had sugar in over a year and a half, and I'm the happiest I've ever been. And I thought, liar. No, there's no way that you could keep away from sugar for a year and a half. And if you could, you're not happy. Like part of I mentioned before, I grew up Roman Catholic, so of course Ash Wednesday would come along and our entire family would decide to stop eating sugar for Lent. I think the most I've ever made it was like 10 a.m. on the Thursday afterwards. But I can tell you today, I haven't had sugar, well, recreational sugar, since April of 2005. That's the miracle. Like there's no other explanation for that. Um, so I wanted to get a little bit in the first part of my program, which is going to lead into my bout into abstinence. So I was in the program several months. I was going to the meetings, but again, like I mentioned, I was there for the other program and I kind of wasn't present and I wasn't really listening to things until this woman went up and told my story. And I was thinking, because at the time I was very young, I was 28, 27 or 28. This was a, middle-aged white suburban housewife who I thought I had nothing in common with them because I lived downtown. I was a student. I had to take the bus everywhere, and like there was, you know, being a student, and but she shared how the feelings regarding food, the things that she did, and I thought, wow, that's insane. So, um, I but the thing that got me there, like to admit that I was a compulsive eater, was there was a store across from my work, and I would buy cookies in packs of 6 because if they were considered bulk and then there wasn't a tax attached to it. So I thought, hey, I'm doing great because I'm saving some money. Then one day the owner said, oh, it's during the summer, we're having a special. If you buy 6 more, you'll get 6 free. Okay, under things that don't say this to a compulsive overeater, that's one of them. The next thing I can remember, I am looking at a bag of crumbs. I couldn't have been more than a block away from that store. And I can only imagine what I looked like with that. Just I can't imagine I even chewed anything. I must have just inhaled them. And I looked at the end of the bag. I said, my gosh, I'm one of them. I'm a compulsive overeater. And that started my first bout of abstinence. So I went in going through steps 1, steps 2, steps 3. Um, I got a sponsor at that point, and the guy I picked, there was a point where he was that he had a heart attack, and so he was in the hospital. And all of us OAers, like we took shifts to go and visit. So I'm going to visit him and hope just to spend time so he's like, okay. So I go to see him and he's hooked up to tubes like and wires that if he was a used car, he'd go for about $800 or $900. And so he sees me, you go, okay, Bruce, I'm glad you're here. Sit down. I'm going to teach you how to do step 4. And like I said, this guy's hooked up to wires. I'm thinking, my gosh, if I can have at least half of that tenacity, I think I'll be okay in this program. But what happens is that I got to step 9 and there was an amends I was not prepared to do. I didn't want to do it. And in the big book, like it's before we get to step 1, there's 2 prerequisites. And it says, if you want what we have and are willing to go to any lengths to get it. I wanted what you had, but then I reached, like there was a length I was not willing to go to. And that started the slide, like the bit of the spiral. Somebody at work mentioned to me, they didn't know I was in the program, but I was the guy that didn't eat sugar. And someone said, oh, did you know there's some sugar-free muffins down in the cafeteria? And all of a sudden the light goes on. Oh, sugar-free. Well, I can have that. Okay, they weren't exactly sugar-free. It was like more like there was no sugar added. Because I think it was, I think it had I don't know, raisins or dates in there and there's sugar in those things. But I delightfully went and started having one every once in a while. Then it became one every day. Then it became 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. And then one day they didn't have them. And I looked at now I've gotten used to, the muffins and like, well, hey, these apple cinnamon, they can't have much. Now I've introduced real sugar into my body, and that's where the phenomenon of craving came in. And again, I didn't want to do that thing on step 9 until the day came where I said, F it, and I'm done. It was just before Easter, so some Easter thing that I wanted to eat. They didn't have any more. There was only like 2 packages left. So then I went and got off, going home in the bus, got off to another store, bought some, took a train to another store where they sold these in bulk. I was off to the races. 4 months later, I think I've gained like 85 pounds. I'm looking at a closet and nothing fit. Relapse is a different kind of hell. Before I came into the program, I was miserable. I hated myself. I couldn't look at myself in the morning and look at like in the mirror in the morning and just say, I hate you. I despise you. And I thought that everyone else in the world was out to get me and I had to get mine. But I didn't know why I felt like that. After being in the program, working the steps, getting abstinence under my belt. I think I remember getting my 1 year chip. I didn't get the 2 year chip. So maybe a year and a half that I lost the abstinence and went into relapse. But in that year and a half, I learned why I felt all those things. So whereas before program, I didn't know why, and now I knew why. I knew damn well why I was miserable and I couldn't get out of it. The thing I had to learn was, we call it like the gift of desperation. Because when you're desperate, you'll do anything. Somebody once told me if you want, there's 2 ways to hit, you can hit your bottom by stop digging. And then just go from there. What happened with me is I had moved in with my partner in the high rise. So we were on the 22nd floor. I am full of sugar. I somehow decided that I didn't need any of my medication anymore because I was on cholesterol, blood pressure. There was a lot of things that I was taking, including meds for depression and anxiety. Didn't need them anymore. I was full of sugar and I was flying high. Who needed things? While I was in the apartment, the fire alarm goes off. Now, this is a common occurrence in high rises, and usually if there's an actual fire, the intercom will come on, but I was not thinking straight. What I was thinking is that the cat that we had acquired needed to be rescued. I'm running all over the apartment trying to find this cat. Anyone who owns a cat probably understands that when there's a fire alarm blaring, they're not going to merrily hop on your lap like, please save me. This thing is hiding under every possible piece of furniture that I have. So finally, when I get the cat and he's clawing at my face, now I'm sitting here like, now I have another thing. Okay, this cat needs to be saved. And when I'm holding the cat, my partner asked, like, what are you going to do with the cat? And what my response was going to be, I'm going to toss him off the balcony and he'll be fine because he'll land on his feet. What actually came out of my mouth is, my God, my life is unmanageable. And that's kind of like the part 2 of the second part of step 1, because we say, we admitted we are powerless and that our lives have become unmanageable. And that's the part that I had been missing. The cat was fine. I'm seeing some worried faces. Like, I just let go of the cat. In fact, I called him my recovery cat because, I got him while I was in relapse, and I spent the rest of his life in abstinence, making up for that. We had to put him down a year ago, and it was very sad, but I was also happy that he got to know the kinder Bruce, as opposed to that guy that was hell bent on destruction while I was in relapse. In fact, 3 years after that incident, I was going to my third meeting where here in Ottawa, it's custom that if it's your OA anniversary, they have a special meeting and you pick the speaker and you pick the people, the readers, etc. And I was going to that meeting. When I went to go pick up my big book, that cat had thrown up on it. The difference was that instead of, being angry, getting angry at the cat, I cleaned it up and I went to my meeting. Just very happy that I was in the kind of space that, the mind space that I could do that sort of thing. I have, so that was in April of 2005. When I went back, I was sure that everybody that was there was going to be just like, oh, look at you, tried to go on your own. Like, how did that work out? That didn't happen at all. Went to my meeting. I picked up another desire chip. There was a woman there that afterwards came up, gave me a big hug, and said, "We're happy that you're back." And that was the end of it. It was very difficult to go back because I had all that shame and, of course, the pride as well. But the first time if I came in was more like I'd mentioned because somebody else had suggested I go for this other program, and then that time when I came back, I came because I had to. This disease was going to kill me. That's the first when you're in relapse, it's difficult to get the point because a decision has to be made to put down the food. When I was talking to, I had gotten a new sponsor and discussing all. Frankly, if that I was willing to do anything at that point. If they told me I needed to sit on, go to Parliament Hill in Ottawa, wearing a thong and hand out OA flyers, I would have done. It would have been pretty, and I would have done it. I was at that point when I got back. I dove into service. I mean, at the beginning, the best you could do, I was putting away the chairs at the end of the meeting. I would help, take the key. Like this is a face-to-face meeting, so of course, I took the key to open the door for the meeting because that made sure I got there. There's a time where I'd broken my collarbone playing some sports. Still went to that meeting because I needed it. I absolutely needed it. Someone else at the meeting mentioned to me, immerse yourself back in program. And he gave me a list of things to do. And it was first one, go to a meeting every day. At the time, we didn't have meetings every day. There was a few meetings and like open meetings and other programs that I went to that. Today would be different. It's very simple to go to a meeting every day because there's meetings almost every hour of the day online. He told me to talk to somebody every day, somebody in the program, get a list of numbers, etc. And if they're not there, just leave a message. If they're there, just ask them, how are you doing today? And that's it. Like, it doesn't have to be this long, drawn out conversation. I had to, so two people in the program, I had to contact him every day. And he didn't suggest like weigh and measure the food, but he just said, tell him what he ate. So it was a very, very general way. This was my breakfast, my lunch, and my dinner. At the beginning was like we did what we call the 301 program. So 3 meals a day, nothing in between, one day at a time. At the beginning, it was like 3 binges a day, honestly. But I had to reacclimate myself that meals started and ended, because I was having 1 meal a day. It started when I woke up and ended when I went to bed. The whole grazing thing, like just all day. I mean, like I had to learn what it felt like to be hungry, because to be hungry, your stomach has to be out of food. And if I'm continually putting more food to it, and of course that wasn't going to happen.
5 minutes left, Bruce.
Oh, thank you, Karen. So I had to contact my sponsor every day, and then he said, read 2 pages of literature every day. He said, whatever's approved, like the OA literature, for today, the Voices of Recovery, OA 12 and 12, the Big Book. And he said, read 2 pages every day, but if you want. So, okay, well, what if I don't want to? He said, well, then if you don't want to read 2 pages, read 3 pages. I was like, yeah, that's very clever. But the idea is just that you go start using the tools. So tools of writing, the telephone, meetings. The last thing he suggested to me, and this isn't necessarily OA approved, but he said, when you're in the meetings for the first 30 days, he said you're not to share. He said if any issues that I was having, that's what my sponsor was for, or calling other people in the program. And he mentions that when you're a newcomer, or especially when you're coming back from, if you've been in relapse and you're coming back, he said, this may come from some long timers, but you're going to take the cotton that's been crammed into your ears and shove them in your mouth. And you're just going to listen. Because he mentioned sometimes when we're lining up and we're getting ready to share, and I know I do this, is that, okay, well, I'm going to say this first, second first, add a funny anecdote, and then I'm going to end it with this. And once I started doing that in my head, I've stopped listening to whoever's sharing before me. And he said, you need to listen to everybody that's there, because you need to absorb all of it. When I'm working with somebody coming out of relapse, I suggest this to them. I don't insist, because tradition 3 says the only requirement to be at a meeting is the desire to stop eating compulsively. It doesn't say that you're not allowed to share. And so when someone's coming from relapse, I say, here's the things that you should do. This last one is up to you. But a lot of people do it, and at the end of 30 days are like, thank you for suggesting that, because they really got a lot out of just listening to everybody that was sharing. Particularly people who have been abstinent. So I know I didn't mention that much about my life now, but I had to go back and make amends to that person from my very, very first meeting that I thought was a liar, because no, I have not had sugar for that long, and I am the happiest I've ever been. The worst day that I have lived in abstinence is still better than whatever was going on beforehand. I've learned to live life on life's terms. All those promises that we see in pages 83 and 84 of the Big Book. One of my favorite ones is that we'll comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. Because I don't think I've ever had any kind of peace before coming into the program. I notice that I'm coming up to the end. What I wanted to say is that if you ask anybody with any type of abstinence and ask them when they got abstinent, they will all say today. You can be abstinent today. Today can be your first day. If you've been on this meeting for the last 40 minutes, you've been abstinent for 40 minutes. You can count today to be your first one. For those of you who are brand new, welcome and keep coming back. If you're coming back from Relapse, welcome, keep coming back. And if you've been here for 20 years or 25 years, welcome, and please keep coming back. Thank you, everyone, and I wish you all a wonderful 24 hours.